All right, now we're going.
Okay.
Ben, nice to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Yeah. So I want to start out just asking you some questions about your background and stuff, and kind of giving the audience an idea of who you are, what you are, where you're from, all that stuff. So let's start here. How old are you, and where do you live?
I live in Los Angeles, California. I live in a suburb, Pasadena, Glendale. If you're familiar with the area, you would know. I'm 38. I'm sorry, I'm 36 years old. And you know, I came to the United States when I was 4, and so I didn't, I don't remember a whole lot of where I came from, which was mainland China. I came from Beijing, and you know, I came to the United States pretty much speaking no English, right? I spoke rudimentary, elementary level Mandarin, which is, the national language China, and everybody speaks it. It's mandated. So that, that's pretty much my beginnings. I came here, went to public school, went to elementary, middle, and high school in the public school system. I went to UCLA public school. I went to Cal Poly Pomona for a brief period, got my bachelor's degree, and really what I guess defines me career wise is I'm a martial arts instructor, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, performance coach. We met each other through, I think, strength and conditioning, and
Yep.
I pretty much am a jiu-jitsu coach, a performance coach, mental performance coach, and that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything. I own a few businesses. I'm a small business owner. I own my own jiu-jitsu gym, and pretty much make my living through fitness, jiu-jitsu, owning my
People out.
business. Yeah, when they need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, man,
So,
the martial arts and fitness stuff, it gets people through the day, gets
yep,
people through the life.
yep. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm an American citizen. I was nationalized, I think, when I was 15 or 16. I think 16. I think that's the official age. I pretty much at this point, I guess I would identify as a American, but really, I'm just a human. I don't really, really. It's kind of weird, right? Like I'm not really from America, but I don't really have any ties to China at all.
Yeah.
I hope she lives forever. But when my grandmother, you know, finds peace, then that's my last tie to China.
Mhm.
That's it. We have nothing.
She's over there now.
Yeah, she lives there. She's been there her whole life. Refuses to leave, and she's 80 in her late 80s. So
Nice.
I
You
talk to
talk
her a
to her?
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah, all the time.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Nice. What would you say? How would you describe? So you said you nationalized around 15.
yeah.
What was the process like leading up to that, as far as like being from China, getting here, and then what process do you go through to get nationalized here as a Chinese citizen,
I
as
was too
Americans?
young to really really understand the intricacies of the process. But I mean, my dad, he passed away a couple years ago. He went through. It was a big deal for him. It was a big deal for him to be a U.S. citizen, and I think one of the biggest reasons it was a big deal for him was because he wanted me to have the opportunity as a U.S. citizen,
Mm,
to do it the right way. I think he understood. He's always kind of done things the right way. He was, he had a visa, work visa, all that stuff. I think he was a, what is it before you become? It's like a resident alien or something like
mhm.
that. I think that he was that was our classification for much of my um, younger days, and so when he became a U.S. citizen, he went through all that process. I don't really know the details.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
became a U.S. citizen because I was a minor and I was his son. I believe that was how it happened. Not a
Hmm.
100% sure, but I believe that was the process. And that's it. That was all I can really remember about it.
Yeah. As you've gotten older, have you kind of appreciated what your dad kind of went through
Oh yeah.
to get there? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if he didn't do this, right, and I was kind of still I guess if he never became a citizen, I really at this point would have been fucked. I wouldn't have had any opportunity. I wouldn't be able to, really start my credit. All this stuff is kind of, it becomes, I don't know how many thousands of times I've had to do something, and there's a box that says, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" And
Right.
certain social security, these types of things, security card, all these things. I think it makes travel easier. So yes, I appreciate that, and back then, obviously, I didn't care. I was like, teenager, who gives a fuck? But now, obviously, I see that like that was a big deal, yeah, I do.
You mentioned before to me in the time you kind of grew up in the streets of LA type of deal, and
yeah, I was kind of I was living in poverty. My parents came with very, very little in their pocket. I think my dad came first. I didn't see my dad until I was really
were you in LA?
4. Yeah. He
Yeah.
came to Pasadena and he went to Caltech.
Okay.
Caltech is kind of like MIT of the West Coast. It's very science-based school. My grandfather went to Caltech. There's like a lineage. And when he got here, he didn't have anything, and so he spent a couple years kind of scrounging. He had I think Caltech gave him some fellowships and some things to scrounge by. So when I got to United States when I was 4, we were living in like I think it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, like literally on the street. It was like one of those like San Francisco type apartments in Pasadena. It's very rare, actually. It's very rare that you see these things nowadays. But anyway, I remember this place, and yeah, it was good. I didn't think I was in any kind of poverty at all growing up. I didn't.
Right.
I just thought this was life. I didn't know like we would. I didn't know people had like mansions and cars. I was like, I'm eating tuna cans and ramen, and we go to McDonald's maybe once a week, and that was like the greatest thing ever. And my parents drove used car. We had
McDonald's was better in the 80s too.
That's something about McDonald's, man. It was like it tasted real good when you were a kid. In-N-Out burger too. I don't know if you probably had it, right? In-N-Out burger.
I think I've had it once or twice when I was over there.
When I was a kid, I was like, In-N-Out burger is the best food you could ever have. And then when you grow up, it's like, what's going on here? And so anyway, the patties got smaller. All this shit happened. But when I remember growing up was that I just didn't think that I was in any situation in which I was never taught to blame a circumstance, even though I feel like my circumstance wasn't great.
Right.
I was bullied. I was bullied by people for being Chinese, being Asian. I also became a bully too. I bullied other people. And part of that was just surviving, I guess. But I was one of the few in Pasadena in the early '90s. There was not a lot of Asian people. This area of Los Angeles, it was mostly Black and Latino. I would say it was mostly, at least from my scope, my lens, right? Yep. I didn't hang with the people in Pasadena that lived in the hills. I hanged with the people in Pasadena that were below the 210 freeway, or there was a little bit of an area above the 210 freeway. 210 freeway for Southern Californians, or there's like the marker. There used to be a marker. If you go above to this certain area, this was gang infested. You don't go there, and all the nice things are here, and so when I was growing up, I just was always a part of like the impoverished areas of the town. And so I just, I hung out with mostly Black, Hispanics. I didn't really have many white friends. I had pretty much no Asian friends, all through, I would say, high school. And then when high school hit, my parents, I don't know what happened, but something stepped up. I think my dad had made some money in the stock market. I think this was when some stocks exploded or something in the 90s
and stuff.
I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden we moved. I spent a year at this place called South Pasadena High School, and there was a lot of Asians and a lot of white people there. Now I didn't fit in at all. I was a thug. I was a gang member, thug looking guy, and so I don't remember much about it. I played football, wrestled. But it was, like everybody on the football team was white, and I was like, this is new and
the culture
exciting.
shock.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is this? I was used to playing I didn't even, I wanted to play football, but we never got to play football other than, flag football when I was really young,
Mm,
because the people I was hanging out with, it was all about basketball. Everybody
right.
was black. Everyone was black, and I went to the Boys and Girls Club, and there's no football. I mean, once in a while we throw the ball, flags and whatnot, but it was all about basketball. So,
Go to the
um,
courts.
yeah. So when I went to South Pasadena, I played football, and everybody was white. I was like, oh, this is weird. I had no friends. I had like one tall white guy as my friend who used to have sleepovers and play basketball, and so anyway, it was 1 year of that. That was like a transition. Then I went to another high school, Arcadia High School, which is where I'm at right now. Arcadia is one of the houses I own, and this place is another culture shock because Arcadia is a city in the suburb near Los Angeles in which the population is 50% Asian, and
Mm,
specifically, I think it's East Asian. It's not like Indian, or it's East Asian
right.
specifically. So when I went to high school, everybody was now looking like me. So now I went from, you know, being bullied by people of different race to being bullied by people of my own race. And it's like it was like, okay, now there's another thing. So throughout this, I don't know. There's no purpose of me saying all this except just to give you a history. But I think the
Yeah.
lesson that I learned through that, the thing that I can look back on all these experiences, 4 years of high school, 4 years, all these years of public school, is that public school, I think, almost certainly gave me a victim mentality. Um, and I don't blame the people or the school or anything. It was just the circumstances of what you're in. You kind of develop this like victim mentality, right? So when the first time I saw one of my classmates in high school drive a Lexus NX, I believe. I looked at this guy and I was like, "Are you drive a Lexus to school? You're a
Yeah, high
sophomore
school.
in high school." I was walking, until senior year. I didn't have a cell phone until senior
Same.
year of high school, and I was like, my first car was a Toyota Camry that would die in the middle of the street. I had to turn it back on, people be honking. And so when I looked at this guy, he was a darker skinned Asian guy. Um, but I didn't really think about it like that. It was just another guy. And this guy had money, and I was like, "What the fuck? What is going on? Like, life's not fair." And I
Yeah.
developed. You then you start watching like Marvel movies and all this shit, and then next thing you know, I was like that guy. I was like that guy striving to the underdog that like people wasn't being treated fairly in society. And I remember this um, subconsciously. I never really expressed it or talked, but
Mm,
throughout college and when I became an adult, I just remembered like my a lot of my childhood and being around other people that were kind of this low class, low status. One of the biggest common denominators is victim mentality. Is this like I don't want to get out of here because I can't, because the man is holding me down. This boogeyman's holding me down, and these are situations that you can't control, but you you're procrastinating your life because you don't think you can do it. That was one of my biggest hangups. Um, my transition as a teenager to a college student to an adult, that I never found any real success in life um, until I was probably 33 years old. I
mm,
honestly, I never had any money. I never had any savings. I never had anything until my mindset just flipped. I
right.
started my business. When I started my business, and I went through what I needed to go through to see that, look, like, what you think is what you really want to do, you need to put in the work. But more importantly, you have to find what you really want to do. If you don't want to do a certain thing, then you're not going to put in the work because you just don't enjoy it. And that was part of, I think, my victim mentality. Was I was fed a lot of things by society to chase, and those weren't things I really wanted. Chasing. My dad was a part of it, to be honest. Chasing college degrees, for example. He was all about like, oh, you have to get a master's degree or a PhD and whatnot. We would always talk about this, and and that's great, but there's no purpose. You end up getting, like, I have a bachelor's degree in hotel and restaurant management. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck is that about, man? Like, what, I worked one day at the Ritz Carlton Laguna Niguel, one day, and then I quit because it was graveyard shift, and I had a guest yell at me, and I was like, I'm not, you don't talk to me like this.
Yeah.
I'm a crazy guy. You don't talk
Not
to
a
me like this. I
slave.
talk to you like this. We're not the same. So I just walked right out and became a personal trainer right the next day. I was like, you know what? I'm a personal trainer now. I already had my NASM because whatever reason I got it in high school, and boom, was a trainer the next day. And so that kind of started my path to just owning my own gym, owning my own business. Is really permission. I
When
think
did
one of
you
the other
start?
things. Yeah,
When did you start like martial arts and getting into martial arts in any
in my
form?
20s. In my
Okay.
20s. So
Yeah.
I always martial art. Like I started Brazilian Jiu Jitsu when I was 20.
Hmm.
And I wasn't serious. I was just like, it was one of these things where I would say Jiu Jitsu. I started for ego. I started because my friend was like, "Oh, this is the best martial art." The Gracies. And I just was like, "Okay, let me find the nearest Gracie." And it was Roger Machado was the nearest Gracie lookalike, I guess. And but Machado's very good, obviously. But I couldn't afford the guys. $275 a month.
Right.
This was in like 2001, and so I went to this place and paid like $60 a month. It was just a upstairs office building. My instructor Rodrigo Teixeira, great guy, still talk to him a lot, and
Nice.
he was just awesome. He didn't really care about money. He was like, oh, you pay when you want, and I was like, okay, here's a year's $900 for the year, and then I've trained for like 3 years, and I
Nice.
forgot. I was like, I was an irresponsible child. And so that started my journey. I went and got my black belt eventually from Gracie Baja. Um, I didn't start taking training seriously probably until I was a brown or black belt, honestly. Like I
Right.
had no intelligence before then. I just thought meathead, going in there and smashing into each other was like the way to win. I had
Yeah.
no idea of like systems and all that stuff. So
Just kind of learning because you were showing up, and that's like what you do when you show up. You're like, all right, I'll learn a move, but I'll go back to these moves because these are my go-tos and all that type of stuff.
yeah, well, what I was gonna say is that I think one of the things that you get when you come up from kind of like a poverty background is you get this like tightness that that holds you back, and what you need is permission. And so I didn't, and when I say by permission, it's not like permission like I'm literally going to let you do it. It's just the mind. It wasn't until I started messing around with talking to successful people and reading Eastern philosophy and doing that, where I was like, you know what? Like humans don't need information because everybody had the information. I had the information when I was a kid. I knew what to do. I just didn't do it. Why didn't I do it? One, because the truth is, we kind of humans, we kind of say we want certain things, but we kind of don't. And anytime I'm telling you I want something, that's probably a sign that I don't actually want it. Because if I really wanted it, I would already have it,
Right.
and I wouldn't be telling you, I'd be busy out there doing
Doing
it,
it. Right.
why would I tell you? Telling you is a form of procrastination, so I developed a lot of this procrastination when I was I think just through public school system. And, um, I needed permission, and permission isn't information. Permission is just, to me, somebody telling you, hey man, this is how things work, and explain it to you in a logical but also truthful manner. And that's what I'm trying to do. I don't know if you ever, yeah, I think you're banned from social media, but on my social media, that's what I try to do. I try to avoid like heavily political things and just go right to the source of what could actually create change for people. And not that I want to change people. These are all things for me. I'll post
Mhm.
philosophical quotes about like, very harsh things, to be honest. It's not for people with a victim mentality. Things like
Mhm.
all conflict is self-conflict. All things like all human beings chase pleasure. These types of things that are Eastern philosophical truths that you see throughout every text. Bhagavad Gita, you see this through every text. And so when I do that, it's kind of like a reminder to me, you know, how I broke out of this shell, I guess. And
Hmm.
I do it because I write these things and post on my Instagram and Twitter for my own ego. You know, I like when people like things, but also to allow people to kind of look over my shoulder. Um, that's the only way I've found to actually lead, to help, is to be the person that other people want to see in
Right.
themselves, and then they can make that meaningful change. You know, whenever you tell somebody what to do, they never do it. You know, it
Mm,
just never happens. So yeah, I've always needed a leader like that in my life. Never had one. You know, maybe I
right.
did, but it wasn't a person I could point to and say, hey, that's you. You know, so I wanted to be that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to be conscious of knowing. Like I've reconnected with some like male mentors from my childhood, and it wasn't always obvious to me what they were at the time. And then looking
Yeah.
back, I'm like, that's a good dude. He's taking care of his family. He's doing the thing that he's supposed to do. He's building a good life for the rest of his family, and he's doing it on his own terms.
Right.
And when I look back at those people who tried to help me, makes me appreciate them and realize like, oh, okay, that's who was doing it right, and that's who I should have been following, or
Right.
that's who I should have been asking, advice from and stuff like that.
Yeah, you once told me something, Sean, that I never forgot actually, and I use it all the time. Um, you mentioned reciprocation, and
Mm,
I've see that's what I'm talking about. That kind of stuff. When I was like 99% of the way there already. Like I already knew what you were saying, but you need sometimes that little bit, that little inch that bridges the gap to your
hmm.
knowledge. And when you said that word, I was like, wow, that is actually what my whole life I've been chasing, but I could not articulate it. You know, I was always like more along the lines of saying, you know, I want to help you because if I help you, you can in turn have more resources to help me, and you know
Hmm.
all that stuff. But that's really what reciprocation is, right? That's what it
It
is.
lifts
And so
everyone
when
up.
exactly, it lifts everyone up. And so when you said that, I remembered in my head something clicked, and I've been using that term. It's kind of like a value, you know, and it's not something
100%.
that I always go by. That you can't reciprocate everything because you might go crazy, but you do your
Right.
best to to do what you can, you know. And there's obviously people in your life that are going to do more for you than you do for them, and the understanding and the acknowledgement of that I think is enough. You know, you have to. The problems are when you you don't take that into account, and even if they've done more than you, more for you than you have for them, you still think they haven't done enough for you. You know, that's a problem to me.
Can't hold against people.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've come across these situations in my life, and it's like you might not place yourself around that person quite as much because they're going to take a lot more than they're going to give back, but
Hmm.
it's also, in my opinion, I've realized I'm like I can't hold these things against this person. Like I still love this person, I can still care about this person. It just makes me a little bit more careful around that person because it might not be something that's going to be healthy if I'm around that person all the time or something like that.
Right. I think you're kinder than me in that regard because me, I just, you know, I do agree with you that I don't blame them because that's that's to me that's victim mentality is you blame other people for shit
Right.
that you most likely had control of. You know, I'm not talking about somebody. You know, what's the likelihood of somebody coming around the corner with a knife and stabbing you? You know, it's like, come on, that's not what happens, right? What usually happens is you give people an inch and they take a mile, or
Mm.
you let people get away with whatever they want to get away with because that's human nature. And then you go and you play the victim. You know, that's you're culpable there. You know what I mean? I'm
Mm.
not saying that I would do that to somebody, as in if somebody came to me, let's say I had an item for $20 and they wanted to pay 100, you know, I'm not saying I would try to sell it to them for 500. I would probably still sell it to them for a fair price, you know. But when you are that naive person and then you get tricked, right? That is not the wild animal's fault. You know, that's not the fault of the person tricking you. they are culpable. They are a thing in the process, but you really have all the responsibility,
Hmm.
in my opinion. If you want to actually learn and grow, or make something happen, you have all the responsibility. So I think I lost the video there. Oh no, you're back.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think that's one of the things we're seeing, I could say culturally in the United States, and this is maybe a generalization, but it's one of the hard things to teach, or maybe we just haven't seen it being taught, maybe like it was at one point, which is responsibility, which is taking responsibility, and whether it's taking responsibility for yourself, for your actions, your life, your family, your friends, your community, your everything that scales up or down from there. And I think that that's part of the big lesson there is how do we educate on responsibility? I think that's the direction we're going, and that's the question that I'm asking is how do we teach responsibility? And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with some of the things you were saying as you ask yourself permission. It's like, permission for what? Well, can I be the individual that I always wanted to lead me? Can I be the person that I always needed to be there to coach me, to show me the way? And I feel that same way you feel. And I've realized, especially as I got into my 30s, that I was like, well, now it's my responsibility to actually be the person for other people that I maybe wanted to have. And I didn't even know it. You don't know it when you're a kid. You don't know you want that type of leadership. You just kind of grow into it and then realize like, oh, that's what I wanted. I wanted someone to lead me and just tell me what to do. Like, for example, uh, I almost didn't graduate high school because I was a bit of a punk at times and a jerk, and I'm just very stubborn and a little tricky with authority. And so I had gone through a situation where I was pretty bitter because teachers had lied to me and told me I passed, and then they failed me. And that was like, they'd pushed me through to that point, but at graduation, they kind of screwed me. And so I was bitter. But I had the manager, the owner of the first gym I ever worked at, big Green Beret, very, very masculine guy. And one day we're talking about it, he goes, how come you didn't go back? And I told him, and he just looks at me. He goes, go get it. Go get your diploma. That's it. And that's all I needed to hear. When he
Yeah,
told
there
me
it is.
that, I went and did it because I knew
There it is.
he was telling me something noble and right, and that's all I wanted.
Yeah, and actually, that concise statement is probably exactly what you needed to hear, and you didn't need to hear, a 10-page essay on why. You needed to hear a concise, simplified statement that hit you right in the heart.
Trusted him.
Yeah,
And that was the important thing, is that I trusted that he was saying this, not because he was trying to tell me what to do, not even because he cared like this deep amount, but because
hmm
it was the truth and it was the right thing to do. And I'm glad he did, because, who knows what path would have been created otherwise.
right. I think. Well, first of all, I'm glad that you have people like that. I think that is a fortunate thing. But I think for me, Um, I think I had people like that too, but I'm an idiot. I rejected a lot of these people, when I was a kid, that I shouldn't have rejected. But I think that's the main problem with society, is that you had somebody who was, you know, pretty like a powerful person who you trusted and who was a mentor and who gave you something, and you went with it because you agreed, right? I think the problem in society is that it's not that people don't have these individuals in their life. They usually do. It's that they don't. It's still a one removed from you coming to that conclusion. And a lot of people in today's society, at least the people that I'm around, they're like, you say you're stubborn. Like, some of these people are truly stubborn, and that's not, they're not stubborn in the sense that they have like a certain value that they won't overstep. It's that, I mean, look, it's hard for me to say this without being blunt. It's just an aura of laziness. It's a bit of laziness. It's a bit of self, doubt, self hate. All this shit, and that those people, it doesn't matter if they have a person in their life that's powerful and that they trust. They don't trust anybody. They don't even trust
Mhm.
themselves. So these people, this is why I kind of do what I do, which is these people need they need to look inward. Okay, it doesn't matter what happens outward. Sure, there might be a person that you see on TV or in your life, and you're like, oh wow, these are qualities that I want. But
Mhm.
some people, man, they have to figure it. You have to tell them a truth that they have no cop out to. They have nothing to get out of it. And if they do still want to get out of it at that point, then that's their choice, and you've done all you can as far as being a leader to them. And so
Mhm.
what I try to do is I try to figure all these things out from the inside. Like when you said that you needed this guy to say, I uh, just go out and get it, right? That's what he said. Just go out and
Mhm.
get the degree. I think you were like 90% there, and you just needed him to give you that permission,
I
right?
knew it was the right thing to do. I
Yep.
just needed that confirmation from someone who was mature,
Yep. It doesn't have to be a mentor. It
a
could just be
male. It needed to be
it
a
could
male.
it had to be a male. Okay. So for you,
It
it
had to
had to
be a
be a male.
strong male. Yeah.
Right. So for other people, I mean, it could be a bum. It could be a dog. A dog could bark something, and then it could be anything.
Yeah.
But I think that those people that make these changes, they have to have some inkling of it inside of them already. They have to have, I guess the word is DNA, but not like literal DNA. It's just mindset. They have to have it in them. And this kind of we can segue this into kind of like how politics has been. There's people out there that believe that certain individuals, races, don't have certain DNA, and I don't think people talk about this. Like I don't think I don't think people in America that follow identity politics understand, for example, China's view on the world.
Right.
I don't think I don't understand the UK's view of the world. I mean, I'm not from the UK. I have friends there that seem to be like me, but they're kind of different. It's like I don't really know. I know China though, so I know like how they think of other people. And one of the things that we talked about last time that we mentioned a little bit before the podcast is that there's people in the U.S. speak out against China, right? But it's usually people on the right, right? So people
Mhm.
that are on the right. Um, this boggles my mind because the China is makes fun of the American left all day. Like people don't understand this. Like China, people in China, and especially I guess the more outspoken intellectuals, they literally see American left, ultra left, you know, uh, liberals, and they made a word for these people, and it was that word baizuo. I don't know if you remember that word. They,
I
they
think I
made
have heard that.
Chinese people made this word. It's basically it means white liberal. It means like white liberal, and it's a derogatory term.
Means like silly,
And
like there's silly people, basically,
it's
right?
it's just there's racism in this. It's white. They use the word white. It's like white liberal. It's just like a person who like you just doing things that you have no business doing. You have no idea. It's kind of like an all-encompassing word for like just an idiot, And
Mhm.
so
Hyper
people,
inclusive, white liberal.
yeah. And so the people in the U.S., especially white, ultra left liberals, I've never seen these guys say a bad thing about China when China is literally making fun of them on the daily. It's like
Yep.
what you defending China? Like you know, China, their view, and I don't really care if I get banned from China, whatever it is, what it is. This is pretty common in when you're a Chinese person or when you live in China. These views of the West, right? Like I hope I'm not you know breaking any startling news here. Like China views itself as the supreme race. Like this is you talk to any mainland Chinese person, a lot more of them support the CCP than I think back when I was living in China. I think there was
Mm.
some tension back then, but now dude,
A stronghold.
I mean, we talked about people think that China is a communist regime. It's a fascist regime. It's fascism, and so that's the part that kind of boggles my mind. It's like the biggest power, one of the biggest powers in the world, is essentially fascist, and we have American liberals, anti-fascist type of people who are who like kind of support China, and then we have
They go to
the
bat
people
for
on the
them.
right. You're right. Well, what's going on here? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you watching what is happening? The like right? The guy, you cannot speak poorly of him. You cannot say
Mm,
anything bad about him. You
mm.
cannot say anything bad about the Communist Party. You cannot. Okay? If you do, you will be arrested, or things will happen. Let's just, if
And that's
I do it,
into
it probably
American
doesn't matter.
culture now too. Like even
Yeah.
in America, you saw what John Cena did.
Yeah, I mean, look at this stuff like that. Yeah, I mean that I don't understand that at all. That's probably more about money, hopefully, and not about life or death. But I mean,
Right.
this kind of stuff, that's essentially, I mean, that's Marxism gone off the deep end, right? That's fascism.
I
That's what
consider it
fascism
like
is.
a neo-Marxist, neo-Maoist kind of blend.
Yeah, Mao was. I mean, Mao probably studied some Marxist stuff, but towards his reign in power, towards the end of his reign of power, he was a fascist also. This guy was
Yeah,
probably the most cunning, Machiavellian guy ever. He essentially came from nothing, duped everybody, and took over, like duped, entire nations, like the UK, and became supreme leader. That's his name. Supreme,
hmm
that was in China. There's a term for this. It's just like North Korea. And so he became this guy, and we have people who kind of underestimate, that type of person. And I think it's very, very dangerous, because when you say that the guy, China is a communist country, it's almost like you're not even paying attention. Like this is master race coming again. This is literally everything. This is
right,
Hitler would be in envy of China. Hitler would
right,
be envious of China. Honestly,
right.
like it's 20 times Germany. It's
hmm
50 times Germany. You know, people in China don't even. I don't want to say this as with certainty, but I think a lot of people in China believe that the COVID-19 it was an attack. I really think so. People in China, I've heard this from many people, that
hmm
it's a well known, it's like a known fact. China, we released this virus onto the West, and they suffered, and we're going to eventually uh, take over everything they own, and we're not even going to have to shoot a single bullet. That's really the
And
that's
if
what
that's the
people in China think.
case, it would leave you like if you knew what was going on ahead of everyone, you get to. It's the Hegelian dialectic. You create the solution before you create the problem, and so you already are ready for what's coming down the line.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, if you kind of look into fascism, right? It's like Marxism on steroids. It's like, violence is acceptable to keep political power. It's a one party system. I mean, just look at the tenets of fascism, and it's essentially China, right? I
I
mean,
would say like China is like a fascist totalitarian state, and the things that we see, because the thing that's interesting is people like, well, yeah, but China uses capitalism, da da da. I'm like, well, that just makes it neo-communism. That doesn't make it any better than what we're seeing, because if there's still corruption and there's still
why are
horrible things happening.
billionaires
What's that?
why are billionaires forced to uh, I think what happens is when you're like Jack Ma, right? It's a billionaire, somebody very, very wealthy in China, right? I don't think it's actually the government that cares. I think it's actually the people that want this guy to shut up. And then the government is like, okay, you need to shut up now because people are getting upset. I think that's what's happening. I don't actually think the government gives two rats asses about a person like Jack Ma. I think it's the people who they've brainwashed. The government has already. It's a cycle, So that's what I think it is. I think it's the people, because the people in China are, they're just, again, hopefully not breaking any news. They're extremely racist and extremely proud of, like for example, I think people in like Han Chinese, right? Han is it's kind of like just a race, right? So Han Chinese, like, it's a I don't even know how you would describe it, but there's like different, I guess, like Manchurian is like another one, Han, and then there's like some other um, subtypes or whatever. I don't even know the word here, but
Mhm.
like Han Chinese is considered the like master race. That's what people in China believe. And when you have that belief system, right? Of course, you would believe that your government is going to sabotage the world, and you will, because it's just like Hitler and Germans. It's the same thing. It allows you to commit atrocities in the name of, I guess, your superiority, right? So
They
this
think
is,
they're doing the greater good because it's their people and
yeah. I would
yeah.
say though that there is no Holocaust though in China. There's none of that. There is there's concentration camps for Uyghurs, where I think they mostly just force them to learn Chinese culture, and they try to wash them of
Retraining
Islam.
camps.
Yeah, they try to wash them of like Islam uh, beliefs and things like that, and Muslim beliefs. But it's like the, the reason for that is not because they don't want to. It's because China as a whole country, as a people, as a race, as not race, as a country, the people of China. I believe that it's mostly pacifists. I think Chinese people are generally pacifist. They're not really trying to start a war. They're not trying to go. If you look into history, right, they're not like, they're the ones being,
Attacked.
conquered. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when it's time to go on the offensive, what Chinese people do is they're manipulative. They're cunning. They're Machiavellian. That's Mao was the best example of this. Came
Right.
from nothing and essentially duped everybody and became supreme leader. So that's that's just what it
And
is.
through that process, you strip down, and this happens in communist countries, strip down the religion as much as you can, and you start to make the state or the whatever it is, the focus on the Han people, whatever it is,
Yep.
as the new religion. This is the new religion. There's
Yeah,
a
that's why
type.
they get in where the Uyghurs. It's really the religion. It's the religion
Mm,
part of it. And you know what? I don't want to take a media perspective of it, because I know the truth. I think is there has been some strife with the Uyghur population in the past between the Han Chinese and Uyghur
hmm
people. There have been some, like, Uyghurs are, again, I don't know the truth of this. I just know that this is the sentiment in China. People in China believe that Uyghurs are kind of like um, lower class citizens.
hmm
They're thieves, they're robbers, they're rapists. It's always the same shit. It's the same thing in America, where when people try to demonize blacks, and it's the same type of, like, hey, these guys are like criminals and whatnot. I don't know if it's true, but that is the justification. These are pickpockets. They came to like steal from us and all this shit. And I
hmm
don't know if it's true, but that is the sentiment, and that's why the people in China are perfectly okay with it. So
Right.
what's the difference? These are criminals. Lock them up.
A lot of times in like these communist regimes and when the Marxism sneaks in, so what comes along with that is are you familiar with Yuri Bezmenov?
Yes.
Yeah, so the demoralization process
Yeah.
is, as far as I can tell, in my estimation, is a very real process. And you kind of were mentioning it earlier when you were saying, like I don't know why these people are lazy. They don't do the things they say they want to do, and all this stuff. I think that's part of that demoralization process. Is you make people want all this stuff. You make people want to consume all this stuff, but at the same time you slowly slip in these beliefs that you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim, create
That's
these
what I went through as a child. That's
yeah,
what I went through as a child. That's why I grew up with
makes you
victim belief.
nihilistic.
That's what they do to people in public school. I mean, I don't know if this is some kind of a boogeyman thing, but I think it's just a natural order of how societies, how people who are in power stay in power, they have to have a, a portion of society brainwashed, and you can't have everybody walking around, millionaires, right? So you have to, there's probably a system in which, okay, keep these people here, keep these people here, keep, because we can't all,
Subversion.
exactly. It's not, I don't think it's a timed or purposeful thing in many of these cases, but it just happens that way.
Right.
In the chase for power, this is the collateral damage.
I think what happens, and just like you said, there's kind of once you start to introduce certain socialist ideological frameworks into a civilization, into a society, I think the natural evolution is that. And I think some people knew this already. So say Yuri, for example, was clearly, he knew it. And so I have a weird theory about like when the Soviet collapsed. I can't prove this yet, but that either the KGB guys either went to China or that the Chinese were recruiting them, or both, and that's how Maoism emerged, because it's a very clear evolution of Marxism, Leninism, and so forth. And even like the Trotskyite behavior, using race where it's useful, and then trying to change the terminology where it's useful, so you can captivate the people with being like team victim and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think the way that Mao and the evolution through the Chinese history happened was like, they made themselves a victim to like the rest of the world. So they're like, they want to keep us down and this and that. And it's a natural. I think you can capture a lot of people that way. Be like, yeah,
No,
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
That's not a theory. You hit the nail on the head with, that's how the Chinese people, supported a person like Mao, is because they believed that they were, the doorstop, not doorstop, the doormat
yeah,
of the rest of the world. And to be honest, they wouldn't be far from the truth. That is the truth, because
mhm,
of China's pacifist nature and disjointed military, and its own internal civil wars. Yeah, Japan came in, Britain came in. There's a lot of stuff happened that probably should not
right,
have happened. But yeah, if I was a person just living in the city or countryside, and we kept getting this shit happen, I would probably support Mao too. It's like, hey,
right, right,
you can fix this. Let's fix it, because I don't need another. I'd rather have you, a person that is going to provide me X, Y, and Z that I need, and then we're going to go kill some bad guys, um, rather than another white dude coming from the sea,
invaders.
invade, exactly, another
Hmm.
Japan, person. It's like this shit. I don't blame the people for being the way they are, because they don't know anything else.
Right,
You can't blame the people of China, uh, for supporting their government, because if you never knew what capitalism was, I guess, as a system, if you didn't know there was a two party or a multiple party system, then how could you ever speak out? Why would you speak out against the government? You can't do anything
right.
about it. So it's, you're not. You see what I'm saying? It's not that they are.
22.
Yeah, it's these traps that are loops. Okay, so
Mhm.
you can credit size, but you can't do anything about it. So why waste your time? All right, you go back to planting seeds. Go get back to work,
Hmm.
and that's why, in my opinion, people in China do not have a victim mentality. People in
Hmm.
China do not have this, like, oh, look at you know look at this rich guy, or look at this rich guy. That's why billionaires and people that do have wealth, they are forced to, don't say nothing. You're a pawn. We'll let you live, but you need to
Can't
be
speak up.
quiet.
It's
Can't
just,
speak,
yeah,
because we can't have a million people, or a billion people thinking that they could be you. You can't
right.
be a leader. We That's why in China the heroes are kind of like the government supported people, like the sports athletes, and certain singers and whatnot. These are all people that
Yeah.
in bed with the government. Jackie Chan.
You mentioned that some of the millionaires over there, they get when they do that stuff, they get basically exiled and all this stuff. And
I don't have any evidence of that, but I don't know about exile. I think you get like there has been.
They take assets though and stuff of some people that move away.
That okay. So that is a different thing. This yes, they have seized people's assets under the guise of you're trader type of thing. Oh, you're a trader. This is land. Your uncle was supported Chiang Kai-shek. Okay, your uncle's friend went to high schools. Your land is we're going to let you live there, but you pay us X amount
right
per month. Like this kind of shit. It's never
like lording.
It's never like a direct thing. It's never like show up with guns and take your property. That's I guess what that's probably what the colonizers of America did, right? But that's a direct thing. It's never direct. It's never show up at your doorstep with guns with 50 people. It's show up with one person, but that one person is going to send you a message, and if you don't listen, you don't know what's going to happen. So you better listen. So it's more treacherous. It's more like manipulative. And yeah, I mean, I heard stories when I was a kid that I still kind of put together, in my head. There's like glimpses and flashbacks to things like my grandparents would say, and I would always, when I was an adult, I would think back and like, why did she say that? Why things like, for example, we had to. I remember when I was in China, I wasn't there. It wasn't when I was a child. I was visiting from the United States when I think it was like 8 or 10 or something like that. And I remember my grandma saying, "Oh, we have to go to this person's house, this diplomat's house, and we have to make sure we bring like these gift baskets, and we couldn't give money because money was like a bribe, but we could give these gift baskets that had like like one of the gift baskets I remember had like a watch, like a really expensive watch, and we give these expensive like this is kind of I have this case in the back. This is kind of like what Chinese people have in their house a lot of times is these types of cases with a lot of like usually it's with alcohol, but we have glasses in here and gifts. And so you take these gifts to the person's house, diplomat's house, or somebody you need a favor from, or you need to just, give them an offering. And, that's it. You just leave it on the table. You say a few nice words, like nothing happened. It's like, oh, this is normal. This is normal behavior, and so if that kind of stuff, giving offerings to people exists as part of society, what do you think is the reverse of that? Is that's bribery, right? What do you think is the reverse of that? It's snitching. When you have bribery, you're going to have snitching. You have people who want to pay to do things, better, make things better, and you're going to have people who want to rat you out to keep you down. It's just that
climb
those are
up
like
the ladder
things.
themselves.
Yeah, so I remember when I was a kid, that was a big part of why, we were just laid low. We never did much. We never nothing was ever extravagant. There was nothing like that. And then even when my dad later returned to China to work, he experienced this. Like to get to certain positions, you had to to play golf with like the president. You had to snitch on this guy. You had to be an informant. These are things that Americans have no idea how to deal with because we have morality. We have value. These types of things that when you're dealing with a fascist type of person, thinker, racist, master race, they don't give a shit about this. And so
they want you demoralized so that they can get you to do these things.
We're worried. We're over here in America talking about fucking racism as if it was some kind of big deal. When in China, it's not even a thing. Everybody's racist, and that's it. The end of the story. So
the
imagine how much time.
open.
Yeah, imagine how much time they save. To produce. To do things that are productive. To there's nobody's online arguing about politics. Well, maybe there are, but in secret back channels. We're the whole entire social media of the United States is what like 90. At certain times like 90% is all politics. So
distracted.
it's a distraction, and people in the United States are getting just. This is going to sound sinister, but this is just a matter of time. The people in China, especially the intellectual people that I talk to, they have already been laughing at the United States for probably 20 years. Like it's just getting funnier for them and worse because you got this is again, I want to just distance myself from the what I'm saying and what is the truth. Chinese people are very they're very insulting to obese and black individuals. And if you
Mm-hmm.
happen to be black and obese, you are treated like scum,
Mm-hmm.
and that's I don't agree with that obviously, but that's an example of something that like you could brainwash an entire uh, society into believing. So what do you think happens when they show, Americans, right? They show obviously all the crap from, these BLM, like the transgender stuff. They banned transgender hormones in China. It's banned. You cannot.
Can't
They don't. They don't.
transition. Yeah.
They don't. They don't entertain that shit at all. So
Yeah.
while we're over here, fucking picking grapes, they're over there building. They're building skyscrapers.
Mm-hmm.
We're planting seeds. They've already built the structures. They have they have the most advanced, I think, solar grid in the world. These are things that it's just a matter of time. And so if the Americans, United States doesn't realize that this you can't beat somebody who is that efficient.
Yeah.
When you're playing their shell game that they created for you. So I'm terrified, man, like of the future.
We're over here chopping our penises off while they're over there being productive.
Yeah, and there's a lot of lies, that are fed to the United States, and that's why we're all, being basically tricked. Is people like one of the things we talked about in the beginning? People think that China is communist. It's the same as Antifa saying they're anti-fascist. The
Mm-hmm.
name communist in the name doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
Look at
Don't own
what they're
shit.
doing. There's nothing about them is stopped at communism. There's it's a totalitarian tyranny at this point. So it's um yeah, I mean we're worried about like fucking yeah, chopping our penises off and you know mental illness being treated as if it was some kind of like huge breakthrough. Why are we the only country that's dealing with this then? Okay, like what are you doing? What's going on here? So that I wouldn't say I'm terrified. I would say I'm more like I see the writing on the wall because every 100 years history repeats itself in some way. So here we
Mm-hmm.
go. It usually happens at the beginning of the century. So here we go.
Hell yeah, Ben. No, this is good. I really appreciate you joining me today. And I think to end off on a high note, there is definitely hardship on the horizon, but guys like me and you, and hopefully our audience out there, are people who want to build, and people who want to point out what the distractions are and not get too distracted by those, and all at the same time focus on where we can be productive, we can build together and grow together. And I really do appreciate you talking to me today. I think that's
Thank you, Sean.
probably a good place to end
Yeah.
us, and
I think
we'll go from there.
understanding this and just hearing it is that's the change. You just maybe this is the first time somebody's ever heard this, from a
Mhm.
Chinese person, and from a Chinese American maybe you realize, okay, I've been dicking around online talking about racism, but you know the person that I'm like, there's people out there who support like China, and then they're fighting against racism. Like that right there, you
Right.
have to realize, like, what are you doing here? Okay, you're gonna be on one side and be on that side. Don't support the team that is fully racist, and then be online talking about racism is bad and all that. Just, come on, this is silliness. So hopefully, our conversation has illuminated like some of the misconceptions that people may have of China. And again, I may have misspoke here and there. This is just my experience, and that's it.
I appreciate it, Ben. This is the age of irony, as I call it, and we'll keep up on these, and I hope we can do this again soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.